And welcome, everyone. I think we are live. Let us know if you see us on StreamYard and Facebook. And here we go, live on Instagram. And we are going to get started. So, hi, Coach Diana and I are here again to talk about clarity. How many of you would like a little clarity today? So we'll put our glasses on and we're going to get some clarity on a very specific topic. Welcome, Rhythm. So glad you're here. We'd love to see some people from Facebook and Instagram. Let us know that you're here. Thank you, Holly. Appreciate you. So we're going to get some clarity. So I put my glasses on. You like my glasses? We put my glasses on because if I have to read something that I wrote, I have to put them back on. I'm having a bit of a froggy voice, so I might give Diana more time to talk than I can. But we just want you to get clarity, crystal clear, on what are some of the hidden signs of emotional abuse. And one of the things Diana and I were doing as we were talking about this is we think there's some external signs and some internal signs. And we use this a lot in our ministry, paying attention to what's happening out there. Like, what are some of the things that people might be doing? We'll talk mostly in marriage. What are some of the things that your spouse might be doing that are not so obvious, that are more hidden, but might, if they're a habit and they're done regularly, somebody might do it once in a while. So one of the things Diane and I were talking about is one of the things that might happen in the external that's hidden is when they constantly question your judgment. You know, now my husband questions my judgment sometimes. I question his judgment sometimes. Are you sure you want to do that? You know, you really think that through? So that's normal, part of living with someone. But when someone is constantly questioning your judgment, it can wear on you. It can kind of demean your confidence. Like, oh, are you saying I don't have good judgment? Are you always thinking that I don't make good decisions? Am I not making good decisions? And it starts to wear away at your confidence. Oh, you just decide. So that's an external thing, constantly questioning your judgment. That would be an external thing. If he does it occasionally, it's not a sign of emotional abuse. Don't take it that way. But if it's constant, it's like dripping water, constant, it wears away at the enamel of things, right? And then what are some internal signs? What are some internal signs of hidden emotional abuse? Diana, what were one of the things that we thought about?
Well, we said internal signs that I'm experiencing emotional abuse is I'm afraid to disagree or speak up because maybe there's always pushback. Or again, as you said, my judgment is always questioned. So I've gotten to the point where I just don't. I don't want to disagree. And honestly, I think what we're talking about today, hidden emotion, there's some other words for hidden. It's very subtle, right? And often it's very covert. It can be cloaked in niceness too. And I think what happens, as you've said, it has to be constant. And if you've been with someone for a long period of time, whatever that might be, you get to the point where you just know. And so you may not even be making a conscious decision, but you're just withdrawing. You don't say what you really think or feel because you know there's going to be pushback, or there might be some payback, right? Could be silent treatment. It could be gestures. And that doesn't feel good. So you stop being you. And that, yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
And I was just going to say that stop being you is the sign of constant, right? Because, when you live with an imperfect person, even if it's somebody you really love, a husband or a sister or a parent or whatever, they get on your nerves sometimes and you get on their nerves sometimes. It's just life, right? It's just life. Don't call that emotional abuse. But when you live with someone and you don't feel like you can be yourself, like I can't laugh as hard as I want to laugh because someone snickers, like, oh, you're being dramatic here. Right. I can't cry as hard as I normally would want to cry because I'm going to be told I'm too sensitive. I can't, hug my kids as joyously as I might personally want to do that because I'm dramatic. It's just, I'm turning into someone I'm not because I'm afraid of this criticism or comment or rolling of the eyes or look like I'm too much or I'm not enough. Those are the kind of things that
Yeah.
can lead you to just shutting down and becoming a shell of yourself. I remember, Diana, a woman in my church who was just married to an extreme introvert. He probably had some autistic spectrum kind of thing. So he was very quiet, very withdrawn. And she was a hallelujah dance in the aisles kind of woman. And I saw her over the years just shrink. Like she stopped dancing in the aisle. She stopped being the hallelujah extrovert. And, I wondered what was going on at home because she was withdrawing and now that can happen for other reasons too. You can be depressed and all that, but some of it is relationally driven. And we have to look at that. How is your personality changing? Is your self-concept changing?
Leslie, can you clarify for our listeners? You mentioned that this woman had an autistic, did you say autistic kind of spectrum? But there's also, not everyone that's on the autistic spectrum can be emotionally destructive, right? So, but those with autistic that are on the spectrum can also have that element as well.
Yeah, so sometimes we make excuses because someone has a disability. They have a mental health disability. They're bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
They're autistic. First of all, when you know you have a disability and you own that, then you are careful about the impact of that disability on others. So I have a friend whose husband is bipolar, and the consequences of his bipolarness is that he goes out and spends a ton of money when he's in a manic episode. And so that's had impact on their family. And in repentance of his unwillingness to get help when he's in a manic episode, because when you're feeling great in a manic episode, you don't think you need any help. So your judgment is off. He has learned that he has released access to his credit cards. He's released access to the bank accounts because he has poor judgment during that time. And so he's offered consequences and making amends for the damage he's caused. He still has bipolar, but his character is one of concern and care for the impact his illness causes others. I've had friends whose spouses have had ALS, where they become paralyzed, and they're caring about the impact of their illness on the health of their mate, right? And so they're not selfish and narcissistic on top of having ALS. And so you can have a disability of a mental illness or Asperger's, those kind of autism spectrum, they call it now. But when you accept that you have that disability, then you understand that I'm not going to understand emotionally what you're talking about. You're going to have to really dumb it down for me so that I can try to understand it, because I don't think like you do, and I don't feel like you do, and I don't understand like you do. But I'm caring that this impacts you, right? But when someone has that disability and has a character issue of selfishness, pride, arrogance, unwilling to listen, those aren't mental health disorders. Those are character disorders. And I'm going to be inviting George Simon, who's written a wonderful book on character disorders. He and I are in discussion on to be on our podcast to really help us understand that difference, because I think we get really confused there.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. I've read his stuff. That's going to
be good.
Yes.
Yeah. And someone on that chat says, I'm on the spectrum, and I'd be glad to talk to any ladies who have questions. It presents differently in everyone. You're right. And so does bipolar. Some people are more, my mother was never depressed. She was bipolar. She was never depressed. She was always manic. And it presents differently in people. And so have compassion on that. But if someone doesn't accept, like this person in Facebook said, I'm on the spectrum. Once they say that, like if I'm colorblind and I know I'm colorblind and I recognize that I don't see my colors properly, when my husband, I'm not colorblind, but if my husband would say to me, I don't think that looks real good on you, I would listen. I would listen because I know I'm colorblind, right? And so that's the difference between someone who has a disability or a problem and owns it and someone who won't listen and won't own it and won't get help for it. It's pretty hard to do life with that kind of person.
And the willingness is key. There may be a lack of emotional awareness, or sometimes we call it emotional IQ, but you said some words about caring, concern, responsive to your concerns, wanting to care for you. And so it's about willingness when you when you speak about what you need, is that person willing to hear you? Are they willing to address their behaviors?
And let's just say that when you're living with a person with any kind of disability, right? My dad is 95. He's got some needs right now. And it's taking its toll on the caregivers who are trying to help him, right? Not because he's mean, not because he's, has any kind of disorder. It's just hard to be a caregiver and hard to do all of that work. And so sometimes as Christians, we feel guilty and ashamed that we can't do it all. We can't fix it all. We can't be the kind of caregiver that this person needs all of the time. And the truth is, we can't. We can't. We're one human being. That's why sometimes you need extra help to care for someone who's disabled or be with someone who's disabled, because it is taking its toll on you. We're really not talking about that today. But if you're with somebody who's covertly abusing you, you may think, well, what's wrong with me that I just can't handle it all? Nothing. You just can't handle it all any more than one person taking care of a person who's got ALS should feel guilty because they can't handle it all. They can't handle it all. Don't put that burden on yourself.
Yeah. So back to internal signs. I have a couple more. I don't know, we experiencing these things sometimes, but if you're chronically experiencing them in a relationship, especially with a particular person, it could be an indicator that there's emotional abuse. So you're confused often, right? You question your reactions. I think one of the things, Leslie, if you're constantly guarding yourself, it is a fact that you can't convert short-term memory to long-term memory. So you won't remember things. So you're finding that can be an issue. Now, don't go freaking out that you have memory problems or something. But if you're constantly bracing or afraid to say what you think or feel, you're anxious before you see someone or talk to them. Sometimes you can think, like, if I'm living with a spouse who is emotionally destructive, my body will give me some cues. Like, notice, if you're out grocery shopping or you're coming home from work, how do I feel about going home? And what's that about? Get very, very curious, and that can be helpful.
And how do I feel? And I think this is really important. How do I feel about having a hard conversation with someone? Mm-hmm. Right? So if you feel anxious about having a hard conversation with someone, let me tell you, it may not be him. So don't immediately say, oh, that means I'm being emotionally abused. It might be you. I just talked to a woman, Diana, from our membership, Conquer. I did a consult with, not consult, but I did, how they win the consultations with me. And so I was doing a consultation with her, and she finally said, I never told my husband how I felt for 29 years. Yeah. And now that I've been in Conquer, I'm learning how to speak up for myself. And he was blown away. He said, why didn't you ever tell me? And so it wasn't him. He would have listened year one. It was her. She had these beliefs like, oh, I can't say this and this would be mean and I'm afraid he's not going to like it. And so it may not be the other person that has you tied in knots as to why you can't speak up for yourself. So don't just think immediately, if you're tied up in knots going home and you have something hard to say, it's them. Notice, do I have that with everybody? Do I have that with other situations? It might not be the other person. It might be you that needs some work. But either way, it's good for you to notice that.
Absolutely. Great point. And I think it is a truth that sometimes our mind can override. So paying attention to your body and your spirit, and just listening, and being very curious. What is this about? As you said, sometimes we haven't learned to use our voice from the time we've been very young.
Yeah, we've been afraid because it was a family of origin issue, or maybe it wasn't even a family of origin. I remember my daughter and I were just talking about this, that she just came out the womb a people pleaser. She just came out the womb a very compliant. I had one child who was the strong-willed child. I was reading Dobson's book, 6 months of age. Not that I recommend it, but back then there was the only one. And then we adopted a little girl from Korea, and she was 3 months when I got her. So she wasn't like, I didn't get her at 10. She was that way ever since she was a little kid. Mommy, do you like my shoes? Mommy, can I wear this? Does this look good? She just couldn't make up her mind. And she was terrified to upset anybody at school. She was so nervous that she would get a detention, because they had detentions in the Christian schools, that she would have anxiety going to school. So, as a good mother that I was at the time, I said to her, your homework, you can't come home if you don't get a detention today. Your job is to get a detention on purpose.
Oh.
And she said, I'm going to do it. I'll be a bad girl. I said, no, you'll find out it'll be fine. You won't die. And so she talked when she wasn't supposed to talk, and she got a detention. And she realized, oh, nothing bad happened. Like, the teacher gave me a detention and I didn't die and nobody hated me and life went on. And so sometimes we see ourselves being such a compliant people pleaser. We have to give ourselves some assignments to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. But that's not what we're talking about here. If you are a person who normally has no problem speaking up for yourself, but you're with this person, you're getting sick inside. Pay attention. Yeah, I see some people in the chat who are relating to my daughter's story. Yeah, sometimes children are. And here's where Christianity gets really messed up, because we think that's a good child. Right? You're obeying mommy. You're such a good child, especially a female child. Right? And so we actually encourage that kind of obedience without thinking, wait a minute, she doesn't have to obey me. Like, she couldn't even pick out her own shoes at the shoe store because she was afraid I wouldn't like them. I said, you're the one who has to wear them. If you like them, get them. If you don't like them, it's okay. It's those kind of things that we need to teach women, especially young women, to make up their mind, to decide. But getting back to our topic, I think one of the external signs that you are being emotionally abused, and they just had an article about this, is neglect. Nobody talks about indifference or neglect as being a sign of emotional abuse, but it is. When someone is indifferent to your needs, they don't care about you. Like, they can go out on a hunting trip, spend lots of money on themselves, but when you want to buy your vitamins, or you want to go to a chiropractor, or you want to get your hair done, or you want to go to the doctor because you're not feeling, you're spending too much money. I don't know, you can't have money for that. Right? So when you're being neglected, that resources of the family, of time, energy, and money are not being spent towards you in a generous way. I'm not saying, over generous, but I'm saying, are they divided equally? Are you getting attention? Are you being cared for? When your tire is flat, can you call your husband and say, can you come and get me? I have a flat tire. Or does he say, leave me alone, I'm watching the football game, call AAA, or call your brother? Pay attention to how you are cared for, because obviously we can't care for everyone in our life. But when you marry someone, they actually promise. They promised to care for you, that you will be important to them, that your needs will be their needs. That's what Paul says. Love your wife and meet her needs. Care for her as you care for your own body. Right? And so when that's not happening in a marriage, he may not be hitting you. He may not be yelling at you. He just doesn't care. He's checked out. He's playing video games. He's going to the bar. He's hanging out with his buddies. He's, indifferent to your cries for connection and help and care. That is abusive. And let me tell you why it's so abusive. It communicates to you, you don't matter. Yes. You're not important. And that hurts, especially when someone promised that you are important. I want you to be in my life, to care about you. And now you're not worth my time, my energy, my money. That's
you have the experience of being all alone in that relationship, and that you're the only one that has your back. It's supposed to be a partnership.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone in the chat said, I was told I had to be dying. Third child going to the hospital 5 times without him. It told me a lot. Yes. So pay attention to that. Do you have a partner? Do you have someone who cares about you? If you need them, are they there for you? If you need to spend money on yourself, or want to spend money and you have extra money to spend on yourself, Are you part of the equation, or is it just for him to have toys and him to have fun and him to do what he wants with his money, and you're to do all the work supporting him to make the money and take care of the kids? But to spend money for yourself isn't allowed. Pay attention to that, because it makes you feel like you're not valuable, that all you're there for is as a role. You're a role to fulfill their needs. You're not a person to love. You're an object to use. And that is emotionally painful.
It's deprivation of your core, your heart and your soul. It is crushing. I think one of the other signs that I've noticed, Leslie, is that when your partner is very kind in public, but very cold and cruel to you in private, that's confusing. It's very confusing. It's unsettling. It's ungrounding, and it's crazy making.
Yeah. So in church, they're putting their arm around you. At family gatherings, they're giving you a hug, and then you don't see them at all at home, right? They're just indifferent. They don't, or they're mean.
Or they only are warm toward you when they want sex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So these are some of the signs. We would love to hear what you think some of the signs are. What do you think some of the signs are? I have an ant crawling on my desk. Let me just what do you think some of the signs of hidden emotional abuse might be? Yeah. So deprivation. One of the women in Facebook is saying, he made me sell my car. He has 2 cars. I was without a car, begging him for months to get me a car. So he gets 2, you get none. I had a woman who I worked with whose husband got steak and the rest of the family got hot dogs.
Oh, mercy. That's awful.
I know.
It's really awful. But it's just saying
the fact that, as a wife, we're told to like suffer nobly for that. I'm like, are you kidding me? What arrogance. Like, I can be giving the kids hot dogs, especially if they don't like steak or they're too young to eat steak, but you get a steak and he gets a steak, not he gets a steak and everybody else gets hot dogs.
Well, that would lead to a feeling of my worth is nothing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
A low, very, very low sense of self-worth. I have no right to ask, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another thing that someone says on the chat is fat shaming. So there is this, obviously we want to feel attractive and we want our partners to see us as attractive. And I think that's just normal human desire. But the reality is that as we age and have babies, our bodies change and their bodies change too. Mm-hmm. But when you are being criticized and demeaned and fat shamed, that's not so subtle. Obviously, it's not a subtle form of emotional. It is emotional abuse, right? It's not a subtle form. It is an obvious form of emotional abuse when anyone shames your body. I remember working with a couple on right after their honeymoon, Diana, and it's just, you wonder what is in their brains. This is a second marriage, so they were a little older and had this honeymoon, and they were Christians, so they didn't have sex before marriage. And so when she took off her clothes, he's fat shaming her cellulite on the back of her legs and her rear end. And can you imagine, like, you don't want to be with someone who doesn't enjoy your body and is first looking at all your flaws and telling you about them. And so it really caused a huge problem in their trust and her safety. She didn't feel like she could be safe with him. She couldn't be naked and unashamed with her own husband, not naked physically for sure, not naked emotionally, because when that happened, he would just mock the flaws. Now, we all have flaws. We all have them. I have them. My husband has them. We could mock those things and talk about them, but that would be harmful and hurtful and abusive to the other person.
Oh, that's awful.
It is. It is.
What I would add to it that just came up for me, Leslie, was I think another extreme form of emotional abuse is weaponizing the children against you behind your back.
Yes.
And that can be, for a woman, our children are dear. And how many people do we hear that this happens to? And so when he's subverting your parenting, or their ability to trust you or to be there with you, or causing them to want to align with him, make a choice, right? Who's the good parent here? That is all very destructive and emotionally abusive. And and in most cases, Leslie, it's often hidden. And sometimes you don't recognize it until it's been occurring for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah, because it can seem like, sometimes parents get into this good cop, bad cop kind of style, like mom is the rule keeper and dad is the fun guy. And that happens in a lot of families just naturally because, moms may be more organized or wanting their kids to do their homework and eat healthy and get to bed on time and get up on time. And dads are like, no, let's watch the movie and let's go to the zoo. And who needs homework anymore, And for once in a while, that can be amazing. I remember talking to a woman and she was going to a Bible study or something. This is before I was counseling a lot and doing this work. It was in my early marriage. And she came home from Bible study and the kids had Dunkin' Donuts for dinner. And she was horrified, but the kids were delighted. And one Dunkin' Donuts dinner, a dinner of donuts. How fun is that with your dad? It's an amazing. But if that's all dad feeds the kids all the time or disparages mom's good cooking, hey kids, this hamburger is awful. Weren't those donuts great? Then it can be really abusive. Or like another client that I had whose husband was very subtly subversive. When the kids were doing their homework, he'd say, hey guys, I brought home a good movie from Blockbuster. You want to watch it with me? Those kind of things over and over again. Or he wasn't a Christian. And so when the mom was getting them ready for church, hey kids, you can go to church with mom, but I'm heading over to the zoo. Who wants to go with me? And it was that kind of thing that he was constantly alienating the children from them. And then when he was at the zoo or when they were watching the movie, mom's just wound too tight. And mom, doesn't want us to have any fun as a family. And mom doesn't want you to, spend time with dad and all that kind of stuff that he was subtly causing their children to prefer to be with him because he was planning to leave and he wanted to get custody. And he was undermining all of that with little children that I'm going to have much more fun. You're going to have much more fun with me. You won't have to do your homework. You won't have to get into school on time. You won't have to go to bed early. All of the kind of stuff that mom was the bad guy all the time.
It's very destructive. Kids don't have the ability to really see clearly through that. They become victims as well.
Yeah. And kids are always going to choose donuts and candy over meat and vegetables or bedtime.
Trips, nice gifts, on days out, rather than the things that really build our character, and build discipline into our lives. And those are the things that I think go off and hidden.
So I think that I want to take a turnaround for the next 3 or 4 minutes. I want to invite you to do two things. One is put a question in the chat if you need to. If you don't want to put a question publicly on the Facebook page, totally get it. Totally get it. I'm going to give you an address to write your question. If you want to ask a question anonymously, just go to leslievernick.com/question. And that'll pull up a thing that you can write your question. And then our person who's helping us will copy and paste that and send it to me so that we can read it. And it won't be on Facebook forever so that you don't have to worry about that, or Instagram forever. So if you want a question, just leslievernick.com/question. The second thing that I want you to think about is, what's your takeaway from today? What's your takeaway from today? And as you write that, I want to talk about next Tuesday. I've been working really hard on creating a webinar for you on 4 lies that Christian women have been taught that are biblical. They're not biblical, but you've been taught them. Mm-hmm. Your Christian counselor has probably told you to do them. Your pastor, your husband, maybe you believe them, that create false promises, but do not deliver. And so I want to unpack them. One of them is, I have to suffer. Jesus wants me to suffer. That's a huge false teaching. Yes, there's places that Jesus calls us to suffer, but does he call us to suffer in an abusive marriage? Mm-hmm. That's the question. And so I'm going to unpack some of these lies and show you the Bible verses and help you to understand what the Bible really says and how to read the Bible in a different way than maybe you've been taught, or maybe you've never read the Bible for yourself and you're just letting other people tell you what it says, which is dangerous for you. So please sign up. The workshop is on the screen. It's www.leslievernick.com/join webinar. It's a webinar. We will have slides. We will have a workbook. I've been working for hours and hours and hours and creating the workbook for you so that you have the Bible verses so you can go back and look them up yourself. You have the tools to be able to understand where you've been misled. Maybe you've been lied to, or maybe you've just been mistaught by other people who believe those lies with goodwill but bad outcome. And so we want to unpack that for you. And more importantly than teaching you what the lies are, how do you break free from all that? What do you do? What do you do when you realize you've been living in a track that is not God's will for you? How do you get back on the track of being a woman of strength and dignity and not fear and cowering and shame or hiding or shrinking? And so I want to teach you how to do that in this workshop, but you have to sign up because we're taking it off social media. It will be completely off social media. Nobody can find us on social media. It's a webinar that you will get a link for to join. You can join with your email and then get on the chat. You can change your name on the chat so that your name isn't there, so you can be totally anonymous. You can see other women who are in the same situation as you are. It's an amazing experience, actually. And for those of you who attend live, we're going to pick one for a 45-minute consultation with me so that you have an opportunity, Zoom or phone, to do a one-on-one, tell me your story, and let me see how I might help you take the next right step. So we really want you to come, but you have to sign up and attend. You don't have to attend. You will get a replay if you don't attend, but we want you to attend. And the experience is different if you attend than if you just watch the replay. So come, show up, be a part. And if these Facebook Lives have been helpful for you, this will be a much more organized presentation where there's, notes and handouts and all the kind of stuff that may make this, all the things that we've been talking about, put it together in a really organized, systematic way for you. So we would love for you to come. So let me just see some of the takeaways.
Okay.
Yeah. Exit left. That's my takeaway.
Exit. That's a good
My takeaway, dealing with these hurts now, because I didn't know for 20 years. And now I'm dealing with adrenal exhaustion. That is something, also another sign that if you're starting to get sick, your body is keeping the score of the emotional abuse that you're not even aware of mentally. Pay attention. So she has adrenal exhaustion. This will catch up with your health. God can heal. Do the work. Do the work. Yes. And I'm going to teach you what the work is. I'm going to teach you in the webinar, what is the work that you need to do? Because we talk about it. What is the work? Because we work really hard at trying to get him to change. And how successful is that? For most of you, zero. So what is the work? I'm going to teach you in this webinar. What is the work? I will give you every single step of the work. All right. And then I'll invite you to join us to actually do the work if you want to do it with our small groups. But I'll teach you what it is. So if you want to do it on your own, you have the information. But as you know, and I know, information always doesn't lead to transformation, but you'll have the information. Go ahead, Diana.
Well, I want to say, let me just say that that learning how to do the work is so rewarding because you're stuck in the cycle of emotionally destructive interactions. Your brain is swirling. You cannot make sense out of things. So what I love about the opportunity here is that you're going to get some real tools and learn where to focus so you can exit the drama and get some clarity in your heart, mind, and body. You cannot make sense of what's happening and take steps forward if you're not calm. Mm-hmm. If you're stuck in all of this craziness. And so what I love about the webinar is that it will help you to step out of the craziness cycle of what you're in, out of stuckness, and give you a path forward, a transformative path forward so that you're not in the same place. Mm-hmm. Again and again.
Yeah, thanks, Diana. I love that. Fallon, I just want to answer your question right now. She said, I'm being told his physical abuse is okay and normal. I don't know who's telling you that, but if you live in the United States, it's illegal. He can be arrested for these things. Biting, grabbing, cornering me in a room, pulling me on furniture, call the police. It's illegal. Now, if you live in Iraq, it may be normal for a Middle Eastern man to control his wife through physical abuse. And it may not be illegal. And I've been in Iraq, so I understand. I've been in countries, Russia, where they didn't have the laws back then to protect you. But if you're in the US, you have laws that protect you. It is not normal. It is not healthy. It is not legal. Call 911 and let him know. that it is not legal, and take care of yourself. You're being physically harmed, and your safety is important to God. And I'm going to talk about that at the workshop. Your safety is important to God. It is important to God. All right, let's go to some questions, Diana.
Okay. I have one. I'll read it.
Okay.
Is it emotional abuse to not allow me to get any words in during an argument, or to turn off locations so I don't know where they are, and he labels it as controlling?
Yeah, so he's projecting, he's controlling, right? If he doesn't allow you to get any words in, then he's controlling you, right? So here's what you have to understand. You can't control him. That's not your job, but you can control him. So when he doesn't, you're not having an argument when you can't get any words in to argue back, right? And so that's not an argument. So let's use the right word. You're being yelled at, right? You're being yelled at, and he wants you to be compliant and listen. Now, so is it more true that you yell at him and then he yells at you, and then you yell at him and then he yells at you, and neither one of you get a word in edgewise? The Bible talks about that. He says, stop biting and devouring each other, or you will destroy each other. Or is it more true that he's yelling at you and you have to sit there and listen, and then the discussion is over, right? So that's more of a controlling kind of destructive pattern in a relationship. So what you can do, you can't get a word in edgewise, but what you can say is, I am not willing to have this kind of argument anymore. So when we can have a conversation that both of us can talk and both of us can listen, then I'm willing to participate. But so you're not controlling him, you're controlling you. And this is where the controlling piece comes in. When we try to control them, hey, you can't watch porn. Give me the controls to your passwords. Let me manage your life. They're gonna arch their back, as they should. Nobody wants to be controlled. The sad part about it is that we've taught Christian women that you're allowed to be controlled because it's called submission. And it's not, it's controlling behavior. So if he turns off his location, you can't make him turn it on. But what you can say is, wow, he is punishing me. He is not caring about how I feel about this. And he's not wanting me to know where he is. What do I want to do about that? And this is what we're going to teach you how to shift, not from trying to change him. Stop doing that to me. You've already tried that. It's not working. This is where you need to say, what do I need to do differently?
Right.
Any thoughts, Diana?
Well, just a few. It's information. Him turning off his location for you is just telling you something about what he's doing. It's exactly what Leslie said. He doesn't want you to know where he is. So it's not about getting him to stop that behavior, but being curious and noticing what he does. And what does that tell you about him, about the relationship, and you in relationship to him? Then you decide what's within your power to control and what you want to do with that information.
Yeah. Karen has a follow-up question to this. When you say that about walking away from an argument, then he says, I'm running away. So when I say, hey, I'm not willing to have a conversation like this, I'm not really running away. I'm ending my part of the destructive dance. All right. So we're in this destructive dance, and it's not healthy. It's not helping me. He's stepping on my toes. He's hurting me. And I've tried saying, stop and don't step on my toes, and this really hurts. And he's saying, wah, 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 you're such a baby. Shut up. Right? That's what's happening in these destructive dances. And so you say, okay, I guess I just have to dance with him. No, you don't. What you have to say is, I'm not willing to dance that way.
Right.
And he may call you names to draw you back, because then you're going to defend yourself. Don't do it. Just say, he thinks what he thinks. I can't control what he thinks. All right. But I'm not dancing this way. Right. So he may try to bait you by saying, you're running away. Right. You're running away. And then you want to come back. No, I'm not running. And now you're right back in the dance. Right. Because when you argue with a fool, you're not going to get anywhere. It's going to drive you crazy. It's called the crazy dance, and you're dancing. So the only way that you can stop that dance, and we will teach you some strategies like this in the workshop, so show up. The only way that you can stop this dance is for you to stop dancing that way. And you have to stop giving him more ammo, and you say, I'm not willing to continue the conversation this way. He's going to think what he thinks. When Jesus said to the Pharisees certain things, what did they think? You're crazy. You're demon possessed. He didn't go back and try to defend himself. No, you guys are wrong. I'm not. He just let them think what they thought. Let them think. You know, Mel Robbins' new book, Let them think what they think. You can't control that, but you can get yourself out of the crazy dance. And when you're consistent with this isn't working anymore, he's going to try a different tactic. Now, I don't know if he'll try a more healthy tactic or a more escalated destructive tactic, but now it's not so covert anymore. It can become really clear. He's abusive, right? Or why won't you have a conversation with me? Well, because you overtalk me. You won't let me get a word in edgewise. You're calling me names. I don't want to have a conversation like that. Maybe you're okay with that. I'm not okay with that. And so part of your growth, your work to do is you need to learn. It's okay for you to speak up for yourself and say no, but you can't control what he thinks about it. Right? And if I need everybody to think I'm doing the right thing, and if I need everybody to approve of what I do, I'm going to be sunk in this approval dance.
Right.
So I hope that's helpful. All right, I'm going to read the next question, Diana.
All right.
What if you are a very extroverted person, but feel this fear and anxiety when it comes to this one person?
I think it's time to take a pause and to start noticing the interactions and the memories that you have around this person. Your body is telling you something. There's fear and anxiety for a reason. And we can't always say that it's because this person's emotionally destructive. But I think one question I would ask, Leslie, is when I'm around this person, do I feel safe? Do I feel the ability to be myself, to say what I really think? Am I afraid of punishment? And then to look for evidence that there have been reasons why I feel this way with this one particular person.
Right. Or they might be reminding you of someone else.
Say more about that.
In your history. So it might be that, you know, a strong man, maybe a boss or whatever, you're starting to feel this way around, and he hasn't done anything to harm you or make you feel safe, but it reminds you of your dad when he yelled at you, or reminds you of your pastor when he abused you, or whatever it was. And so Diana's right. When your body is going inside, it's time to say, okay, body, what is it that you're trying to warn me about? What is it? And whether it's this person or someone from the past that I have some memories about that this person reminds me of, that's worth taking a look at so that you can get better, so that you can get well. Because if this person isn't causing it, then you don't want to wreck your relationship with this person because you're putting the person's face of the other person on them. But in the same way, like I had a friend who had an MRI yesterday and she flipped out in the MRI. It's not the MRI. It was the memory of being contained in something else in her past that flipped her out. And so she needed the MRI. She has to have an MRI, but she couldn't do it because her body was like, no way am I going to be held down, right? Well, I guess what that's reminding her of, that she's got unfinished work that she has to do, and they have to actually put her out to give her this MRI that she needs. So when your body is telling you something, it's you've got some unfinished business, or this person is dangerous or unsafe in some way.
And, a third possibility is I've been here before. I've experienced people like this before, and it's not been okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Weaponized incompetence. Can you talk about this?
I don't understand what that means, so I'll let you go.
I'm not sure what it means either, so I'm going to take a guess, and then we'll just have to move on. So weaponized incompetence is, you know, I can't do this, or I'm not good at conversation, or that I can't, share my feelings, or that I don't know how to be, emotionally attuned, or whatever it is that you're asking them to do. I've never, worked at a job for more than 6 months, so that's my pass for being immature. That's my pass for being, that I have this problem. And so therefore you have to just live with it. Right. And so that's what I would take as weaponized incompetence.
So someone's saying they can't, they're feigning that they don't have the power or the resources to do what you're asking, and they're using it as a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be weaponized incompetence the other way. Like you've been so emotionally subverted in terms of your own confidence that this person has kind of beat you down so much in very subtle ways that they have weaponized the ability to make you feel incompetent. So I see that could happen as well.
So we're not sure which one you need to know about, but I'll speak to the first one. You can speak to the second one real quickly, Diana. But the first one is, I think you can say, I acknowledge that you're not good at that, but it's your choice to stay not good at that. Right? Mm-hmm. You're not helpless to learn, to grow, to change. You're choosing not to. And so therefore I'm not willing to give you a pass on that. So if you're incompetent at, if you're incompetent at fixing things around this house and I need things fixed, okay, I can live with that, but I can't live with the way the house is. So I'm going to hire someone to fix it, or I'm going to ask my brother to come over and fix it. And then I don't want you to do that. I don't like that. Well, that's too bad because the house needs to be fixed. So this is where we allow this weaponized incompetence. I don't know how to do it, but I won't let anyone else help me. I don't want anyone else to help you. We're just going to have to live with my incompetence. And I would say that's unhealthy for you, unhealthy for him, and a lose-lose all around. So Diana, what would you say about the other part of it?
Well, I feel like if someone is trying to make you feel like you don't have the ability or the skill or you're less than, and that's happening, I don't know that I would directly confront it. But if you wanted to directly confront it, I might say, it's clear to me that you don't feel I have the ability to do this. And I disagree.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think you can go to college and succeed. I don't want to waste all our money sending you to college. If you didn't do well in high school, I don't think you can do it. And so it's that kind of thing. And to be able to say, well, I'm going to try and I disagree.
Yes. And then find your cheerleaders.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I work in a church. The assistant pastor would come into my office and have long conversations, love bombing. Senior pastor called him out on poor boundaries, but I didn't know this. He got very nasty with me afterwards and pushed me out of a ministry. I still work there. Was this spiritual abuse? It hurt me because my teaching ministry was important to me and I was confused by his behavior. Yeah, it is confusing. Diana, you want to speak to that?
Oh boy. Oh, it sounds like some boundaries were being broken here for sure. Whoa.
And when you say he got very nasty, we're not sure whether it's the assistant pastor who got scolded by the senior pastor or if the senior pastor got very nasty with you.
So I haven't been in corporate before. I think I can relate to this. There's oftentimes when someone is being inappropriate with you and they're getting fed off of the attention and, you call out love bombing. And sometimes that happens where men do that and they know it's inappropriate. But when you set some boundaries with them or someone else does, or you pull back and call them on it, it's blame shifting. They get nasty. They treat you poorly. They act like, well, how could you accuse me of that? When in fact, that what they were doing was inappropriate. Maybe dirty jokes, maybe a gesture, it's whatever it is. But internally that it's not okay. And when you set a boundary, it's blame shifting, flipping it on you. And, as if, how could you accuse me of that? That's a thing. I have a client and we always say it's a thing, and it's a thing and it does happen and men do that. And I really don't have any tools for stepping out of that other than just moving away from relationship with a person like that and really telling yourself the truth. I'm not imagining this. You have to trust your own internal knowing in situations like this. I didn't invite it. I didn't cause it. It's not my fault. And he is clearly inappropriate. And you need some validation for that because it can make you feel like I've done something wrong. I'm horrible.
Yeah, I would say two things. Don't erase that yet, Kelly, so I can make sure I read it. I don't know. So that it seems like the more healthy person in this triangle of you, the assistant pastor, and the senior pastor, it seems like it's the senior pastor who recognized what the assistant pastor was doing and called him out on it. Now, I don't know which one punished you for that, whether it was the senior pastor or the assistant pastor. So if it was the assistant pastor who punished you for that, I would go directly to the senior pastor. And I would say, you know what, thank you so much for recognizing what was happening. And he might also think, why didn't you stop it? So he may have some concerns about your judgment that you didn't stop it. And so here's where you guys have an opportunity to have a healthy conversation. If it's the healthier pastor, the senior pastor who's punishing you, he may believe a story that the assistant pastor told him that you don't know about, that you were flirting and all of that, and he got caught in it and he shouldn't have done it. He's so sorry. So I would, again, go to the senior pastor and ask him why he felt like he needed to demote you for something that wasn't your fault. So that would be a brave step forward to try to get to the root of what's going on. But I wouldn't talk to the assistant pastor at all. But I would talk to the senior pastor if either he was the one who let you go as to why he let you go or demoted you, or thank him for what he did and own your part, that you went along with the love bombing a little bit because you were a little gaslit and you didn't know what was going on, or for whatever reason you were afraid to say something. I don't know what your reason was, but I think that it may have questioned. So when, if I was the boss of a company and I saw some inappropriateness and the coworker went along with the inappropriateness, I would not only speak to the person who was doing the inappropriateness, but I would wonder about the judgment of the person who went along with it, right? And so that's what the senior pastor might be wondering about for you. And I would just go to him and have this conversation and be as open and as honest as possible with both your gifting and what really happened, and be grateful that he stopped something bad that could have happened even worse for his church, for you, and for this other man. So that would be my advice to you. And then you can't control the outcome. And one of the things we talk a lot about is we want to control the outcome. We want to know what's going to happen if I do that. We don't know. But we are called to speak the truth in love and deal with injustice and talk about, things and try to reconcile and repair relationships. That's all you can try to do, and see what happens. All right, here's another one. What if we speak up and are labeled nagging and contentious? I'm going to answer that really quickly because I think we've talked about that. You're going to be labeled whatever you're going to be labeled. Mm-hmm. Right? So there has to come a growth in you, and we'll talk about this in the webinar. What does that growth look like? Where I'm not saying you like I get labeled. I get labeled as a woman who's breaking up marriages. Mm. I get labeled as a Jezebel because I'm teaching women error. Do I let that stop me? No, I can't control what people label me. Jesus was labeled. Paul was labeled. You're going to be labeled. Whether you're doing good or bad, you're going to be labeled. So I've had people who would do really good. Oh, they're just some self-centered, braggadocious person. So they're doing a good thing and they're labeled, right? You can't control that. So if you've got to be labeled good and nice and wonderful all the time, you're never going to put your brave on, girl. Because when you put your brave on, people are not going to like it, some people, right? So get used to it and understand that part of my growth is tolerating people labeling me and me not liking it. All right, so let's go to a question here. What do you do when you say your husband seems to be in agreement with you, and 10 years later he says he didn't agree with you? How you spent the family money, how you spent your time, for you to be a stay-at-home mom, for you to homeschool your children. Many other things were going on, like a porn addiction that was hidden, denying what they said, deflecting to take the pressure off of him. I've learned so much over the past years, but I don't understand what you would call or say about someone who seems to be agreeing with you about these things, even boasting about them in conversations with friends, but 10 years later saying they never agreed, even saying he never agreed to take a Disney vacation we took. This part is so confusing to me. Along with not agreeing to these things, his biggest complaint is I put the kids before him. So what would you say to her, Diana?
Well, he's rewriting history, obviously, and there's not a whole lot you can do about the narrative that he's choosing to spin. I guess I would get curious about how it benefits him to do this and what his purpose might be in that. But you need to be really clear that, yeah, it is confusing, but don't be confused. Recall this as you know it. Yes.
Yeah, it is confusing. And I'm going to play the devil's advocate a little bit. Sometimes when people are immature and unhealthy, they people please. And he may have been a people pleasing man. Oh, my wife wants to do this. Okay. I don't really want to do it, but okay. My wife wants to do this. Okay. I really don't want to do this, but I don't want to start an argument. I don't want to have a fight. Okay. 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 And now he's about done with that. And so he's telling you his true feelings. I never wanted to do that. I really didn't like that. I didn't. And you're like, oh my gosh, who are you? And that's a really good question. Like, who are you? Because I thought you were this kind of man, and now you're telling me you're not. So I would be curious. I would be curious. Wow. Well, why didn't you tell me this 10 years ago? Right? And see what he says. He might say you wouldn't listen, or I was afraid to. It might be that he can own that he wasn't even self-aware enough to know he didn't like those things. Right. So those are all maturing parts of our humanity that I think we need to give some grace and space for people to change their minds and say, I thought that's what I was supposed to do as a good husband, and I really didn't like it at all. Right. And I think some women do that too, that, I gave in. No, not doing it anymore. I never liked it anyway. I've never liked it. I don't like camping. Never. I don't want to go anymore. Right. And you finally get your brave on and you say the truth. So I might say this is a crisis in your marriage, but it doesn't have to be a bad crisis. If you can handle his truth telling with, or figure it out if it's truth telling or is it rewriting history? So I think Diana had a good point. You don't know. But I think if you can come into some curious conversations with, wow, why wouldn't you have told me that 10 years ago? Wow. Why did you think, that you had to pretend and placate me when I would have heard you if you didn't want me to homeschool? So I would have conversations, and that will tell you something. Because if he's really growing, he will have the conversations with you. He will explore it with you. If he's really changing and becoming a healthier person, he will invite those curious conversations and reflect with you about the dynamics of your marriage. If he's just trying to rewrite history, he will attack and accuse and blame shift and gaslight. And now you'll know that, okay, this isn't really something we can repair the way he wants to repair, right? So I would just give yourself some more information by calming down and trying to be more curious about what's going on and what happened 10 years ago.
So we're almost at the top of the hour.
Yeah. So Diana has to run, and we have 3 minutes left. So I'm going to ask one more question, Diana. If you have to click off earlier, that's fine. But I can do this one in 3 months.
Okay.
Saying, poor baby, if I cry because how he's treating me. Using the nagging wife Bible verse against me anytime I bring up something I'm struggling with in the marriage. Calling it control if I ask where he's going and what he's doing. So you're not really asking a question. You're saying what you're living with. And what you're living with is unhealthy at the best words, destructive and toxic at its worst words. So he's invalidating your feelings. Poor baby. He's invalidating your feelings when you say, I don't like this. This means you're nagging, right? And he's calling it control when you ask a question. Where are you going? Right? That's not control. That's asking a question. That's normal to ask when people live together, even if they're not married, right? And so he's negating, he's demonizing, he's twisting reality. You're not going to change that. So now what do you want to do? How do you live with that? How do you stay away from the unhealthiness of it? Those are the things that we're going to talk about in our webinar. So I highly encourage you to sign up and show up and be there. And in our webinar, the webinar is going to last for about 40 minutes or 50 minutes maybe. And then I'm going to do, Diana, I think you're going to be with me with one of them. We're going to answer your questions. And there you can ask them as detailed as you want because nobody's, watching the feed. And we have an hour and a half of just question and answer time, an hour and a half if you want to stay that long. So we will be there to answer your questions, to teach you some of the skills we're talking about in the webinar on how to do what we're talking about doing. Because when you just react and you shut down or you blow up, it doesn't help the conversation. It doesn't help the situation. And it just makes you look just as destructive as him, which is your kids are watching too. And so your kids need one healthy parent. And I would encourage you to do the work that we're going to talk about to get your side of the street cleaned, because then things get very clear about what you need to do.
Yeah.
Anything final you want to say?
Well, I want to say join us tomorrow. We'll be live at 7:30 p.m. And the topic is Holy Not Helpless, Build Strength When Marriage Feels Broken.
Yeah. And Muriel, the link, it's not to subscribe, but if you want to join the webinar, it's leslievernick.com, join webinar, all one word. It's on our Facebook. If you're watching the Facebook, it's on the Facebook bottom line. So just copy that. And if you can't find it and you're all stressed out, just call us, not call us, but type assistant at leslievernick.com and just say, help, I want to join the webinar, and they will help you. Okay. Assistant at leslievernick.com. All right. That's easy to remember. leslievernick.com, either assistant or join webinar, whichever place you want to go. All right. So Diana, thanks so much for being with us and appreciate your wisdom, and goodbye, everyone. It was good to be with you. Don't forget to join us tomorrow at noon Eastern time to talk about the next step. How do we keep our godliness even when we have to be hard with someone in their boundaries and our boundaries? Is that the topic? I think something similar to that.
I just closed my browser, so
Okay.
I don't.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
God bless.